And wait for it. All right, and we are live. So what up, Copper family? Thanks so much for joining us. Hey, Brian. So just so you guys know, those who are joining with us, this is a Dad Bods and Beards podcast. We're recording it and taping it for Dad Bods and Beards podcast for Tuesday morning. Jake Asman has blessed us with his presence, and we're about to start. But when you guys are talking in there and all that kind of stuff, we will definitely acknowledge that, we can see that you're talking, but we will not address you unless you have a really good question, and then we'll bring it up to Jake or Logan or myself, and we'll go from there. But again, this isn't really beard related. This has just to do with football this time around. It's, so all right, you ready to start, Logan?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
All right. And Jake, you're cool about messing around sometimes. Like, Logan is an odd duck.
I feel like I'm in the right place then.
I might make some offhanded comedic relief jokes.
All right. So what usually happens if we say something that's like, ooh, that didn't make sense, we'll clap. And then we Janae, well, she's the one who does all my Instagram stuff, and she does all the editing for this. She sees a little bubble of the clap, and then she'll come and edit everything. So every now and then we'll just do that. So all right, here we go. All right, what up? No, how do we start? Welcome to Dad Bods and Beards. This is Tyson, and we got Logan, and also we have, and we're blessed to have Jake Asman. He is. Let's start over.
He's right here.
No, I'm reading his description on YouTube.
Oh,
as his bio. So okay.
Like you were like looking down, like where is he?
No, my mouse stopped.
That's a Chat GPT description that I just felt like using as a bit. So
seriously,
I didn't write any of that. The only thing I added is I replaced ESPN Houston with ESPN New York at the end. Everything else is Chat GPT. I just threw it there as a bit.
That's crazy,
dude. That it's really well done. All right, so what up, Dad Bods and Beards? I am Tyson, and we got Logan, and we have been blessed to have Jake Asman join us. Now, Jake Asman is an accomplished sports broadcaster and media personality, renowned for his in-depth knowledge and passionate analysis of the world of sports, particularly the New York Jets, one of my favorite teams of all time, and the New York sports teams. Armed with razor-sharp wit and astute understanding of the game, he has become a trusted voice, a go-to source for the Jets fans worldwide, as a host of a highly acclaimed Jake Asman Show, which I can attest, everyone. I listen to him on a daily basis, usually 2 or 3 times, which is mostly viewed by Jets YouTube show it's the most viewed Jets YouTube show on the internet. Beyond his YouTube show, Jake can be heard hosting shows for ESPN New York 98.7 FM. So, Jake, thanks so much for joining us today. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you actually got into radio and YouTube?
Well, that bio was so well done by Chat GPT, so I just want to thank them for doing that. Because I had nothing to do with it. I just added the ESPN New York stuff at the
That's
bottom.
That's something that we got to do.
I mean, it's hilarious how crazy good that service is. So I was just messing around, threw that up as my bio, and I hear you reading it. I'm like, oh, wait a second, we're gonna hear the Chat GPT.
It's crazy good and crazy creepy.
Yeah,
like how well that just like written out.
Yeah, like I would never say like armed with like razor astute awareness or whatever the robot wrote, but that works. I mean, how did I get into radio? I knew I was never going to be a professional athlete, right? So I early on, like growing up in New York, I would always listen to sports talk radio in the car with my dad, and I always just found it fascinating that there would be people that are making a living talking about sports. So I always like subconsciously had that in the back of my mind. And then as a huge sports fan, whether it was the Jets or the Yankees or the Islanders or the Knicks, I always loved the play-by-play announcers. They made the experience of being a fan that much better, whether it was the play-by-play people or the analysts. So I always just loved the idea of like just broadcasting in general while also being a huge sports fan. And I was really fortunate where I was from on Long Island. My high school was one of just a couple of high schools in the state of New York that actually had a student-run radio station in it. So the basement of my high school was a small radio station where you couldn't even hear like outside of like a mile of my hometown, but it was 88.5 FM WKWZ. And as a 9th grader, I fell in love with radio because I had the opportunity to actually be on the radio and do that for 4 years. And I wanted to be a play-by-play person and a sports talk show host. And I got a chance to do both from my high school years and kind of carried that with me to go to college, where I went to Ithaca College for 4 years. But it was kind of that 8-year run from high school to college where I really fell in love with broadcasting and realized, hey, this is something I could do full time for a career. And I'm lucky enough to actually get a chance to do it all these years later. So it's pretty awesome.
Dude, that's really cool. I can attest you're really, really good. Now, did your voice naturally become radio? Like, this is how you normally talk, or do you actually have to adjust your voice for radio?
It's funny.
That's what Logan has to do.
Yeah.
Dude, can you imagine if I had been given like radio, like my own radio channel in high school? Like it would just been bad. Like, who is this kid? I think he's got undiagnosed mental health issues.
You got a good voice. So, it's funny. I don't think I really adjust my voice, whether I'm like off air or on air. My friends will say it's like you project a little more when you're doing a show, when you're on, which I'm sure that might be true, but like my voice is my voice. Now, when I was doing play by play, you kind of use that announcery broadcast voice. But I mean, Tyson, you'd watch me enough on YouTube. Like I kind of feel like I sound the same all the time. Like I'm just being myself. So I think over time, you maybe just get more comfortable. Am I louder when I'm doing a show on YouTube or on a radio? Yeah, probably. But I think if you and I were just talking off air, I would sound pretty similar.
Nice. All right. So besides us about to talk about, how the San Francisco sucks and,
Well, it's been a great night, you guys. I will see you later.
No, but in honesty, I just got done doing drafting with one of my teams for Final Fantasy football.
Final Fantasy, the video game.
Just shut up.
And just give away one of your secrets. You still play Final Fantasy.
actually, my no. What's funny is I actually got Aaron Rodgers and as my backup to Josh Allen, and I'm like, who do I play? I'm like, because I'm like, I really think Garrett Wilson and Rodgers is going to be really, really good. And then they're playing the Jets D, which is on my my fantasy sport. And I'm like, I don't know who I'm supposed to start. But with that being said, which team do you think will be the biggest contenders in this season, and why do you think it is? Because I know what I think, but what do you think?
Well, I mean, I feel like the AFC is loaded with so many choices, right? I mean, obviously, you put the Chiefs there; they're the defending champs. They've been in what feels like every championship game the last 5 years because they have been. Every time Mahomes has been a full-time starter, they've been to at least the AFC title game. So it starts with them. Cincinnati, as long as Joe Burrow's there, they've proven they're probably the one team that actually can go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs. They've beaten them in the playoffs. They've beaten them in the regular season. So I think you start with those two teams. Out of respect to what the Bills have done, they belong in that conversation. I think the Jets are very quickly going to belong in that conversation. If you tell me Tua's healthy, Miami's in that conversation. Jacksonville won a playoff game last year. They're in an easy division. Now, year 3 of Trevor Lawrence, you're expecting a huge leap from him, and he already looked pretty good by the end of last year. So they're in the mix. I mean, I could keep going. Baltimore is really solid. If, the Kenny Pickett experience in Pittsburgh works itself out, they're always in the mix. They won 9 games last year. Mike Tomlin had another winning season. So I think they're a factor. I mean, hell, if Deshaun Watson plays like the guy that I covered here in Houston for multiple years, Cleveland's a serious playoff threat. So, I mean, that's one conference.
So
and then obviously the NFC, you have the Eagles, you have the Niners, of course. I mean, Logan's squad for sure is in the mix. We know how talented that roster is. I mean, who's the real Geno Smith? If he's legit, could they be better this year in Seattle? The Cowboys are super talented. So, I probably listed 12 teams there. I mean, typically there's probably 8 to 12 teams that are Super Bowl contenders every year. I'd say it's probably, if I had to guess, like closer to 8 than 12. But you can make a case for a lot of teams depending on how certain things go.
Yeah.
What do you think, Logan?
I mean, I would definitely like to not see the Chiefs go very far. I'm tired.
I love Andy Reid. I've always loved Andy Reid.
Oh, I love Andy Reid. I mean, and obviously I'm not a little bitter. I mean, they did just, snag it from us a few years ago, but I do like Andy Reid quite a bit. I'm obviously in this whole the Niners world where it's like we're all like, oh yeah, Brock Purdy, but then it's like at the same time we're like, what the heck just happened to Trey Lance? And then we lost Robbie Gould, and then we got the whole Nick Bosa thing going on. So it's like, that's my bubble of just like, I want what we had last year before Purdy got hurt to can we do that again? Can we stop changing things up? Can we just so
do you buy into Purdy? Like as a Niner fan, Logan, do you believe in Brock Purdy? The Niners fans think he's the real deal?
Oh yeah. So obviously I'm a big Purdy fan. I mean, I think he showed up, and then just seeing for the little snippet that he played in the preseason, he was cool. He was calm. Like I felt like Trey Lance was trying too hard, and Purdy was just doing what Purdy does. I think we were all like, "Oh man, please, like, still be able to throw." Like, but he in the beginning, me and a couple of my other buddies were talking about it. Like, he was like, "Oh my gosh, this is Colin Kaepernick all over again." Somebody just showed up. This young guy shows up and just starts dropping bombs, and he's winning games. And we're like, how long before he peters out? So there's that in the back of my mind. But at the same time, he's such like, it's almost kind of like he's a robot. Like he almost has like no emotion. Like he does have some, but I'm on the Purdy bandwagon at the moment. But we want to see, I think how he plays this season will definitely tell if it was just like he had his moment and he showed up and then got hurt and now he's more Mr. Irrelevant the way people thought he would be, or we'll see. So
fair. So do you think there are any rookies that are entering the league that are going to take the you know, I mean, let's be honest, you have Sauce Gardner and why am I having a brain fart? What's his name? Brees Hall, Garrett Wilson. Yeah, like all those guys, like they took their rookies by storm. Like, you know, you had two potential rookies of the year for offense, and then you have on the defense. Is there anyone like that in the league that you can see that you just see being epic?
Man, it's tough not to say Bijan Robinson with the Falcons, right? I mean, watching him a lot, you know, at University of Texas. I mean, this guy's just a dynamic player, and typically, and we saw it with Brees Hall last year, right? Typically, running backs hit the ground running, pun intended, right away as rookies. Like Saquon Barkley was great year one with the Giants. Like it's kind of the opposite of quarterbacks, where typically rookie quarterbacks struggle. Typically, if you're going to be a good running back in the NFL, you show it right away as a rookie. So I would lean with Bijan. Jahmyr Gibbs with the Lions is probably going to have a big year. I would take him in fantasy early. He's going to be a big factor for them. So that's where I would start. I always would look at the dynamic running backs that are rookies because it seems like more times than not, those are the players who break out early.
What do you think, Logan?
See, that's where I feel really bad. And I like talking to Jake here. I'm like, I know the Niners. Like I'm that guy. Like I'm so busy on a daily basis. It's like I almost don't have it. It's kind of like when we hated Richard Sherman, but then as soon as he joined the Niners, we're like, "What's up, dude? Like, come on, welcome to the family. We love you so much." Like, what versus like, I wish I had that much of an interest in the whole league that I was able to pay attention to. Versus, I'm obviously very biased, so. The rookies I pay attention to are the ones that matter to the Niners. Obviously, you hear the big names, you hear the guys that are coming up, or I know all the other big guys on the other teams, but yeah, I don't know enough to be dangerous or to not sound like an idiot talking to Jake. So,
well, how about this? Do you with Purdy? Do you think he's going to be like a Jeremy Lin, who he was with the Knicks, like? He had an epic couple of weeks and half a season, then he just falters out. That's what I think of when I think of Purdy.
That's what I say. I think some of us are afraid of because that's exactly what happened to Colin Kaepernick. He showed up and we're like, dude, this dude's the whole freaking package. And he's a skyscraper. He can run, he can throw. Like if he couldn't throw it, he'd run it. And so it's kind of like and then obviously Colin Kaepernick became very irrelevant and then very, moody and very like everyone's like, get away from him. Nobody wants to talk to that guy. So that's what we're afraid of. I'm a little worried of like, is Purdy gonna peter out? He doesn't seem like a kid that the fame's gonna get to him, but we'll see. He also looks like he's 12.
You had Darnold there though.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. So
what'd you say, Jake?
I said he has our guy Sam Darnold there at least.
He does. Yeah. And then we have Wilson over here. So yeah, seriously, a serious question though. Do you think Wilson's going to be anything ever?
It's
because he had the yips big time last year.
He did, and I really liked Zach Wilson. Like it's funny, I get called a Zach Wilson hater now, but I was a Zach Wilson truther a year ago. So
you always, yeah.
Maybe I just call it how it is. He stunk last year, and I'm a Jet fan who wants to see the team be good. It's not personal. I used to have a good relationship with the Wilson family. They used to watch the show, believe it or not. But it is what it is. I can't be. I got to be honest. He stunk. So you got to call it how it is. He didn't play well, and I think Zach would be the first to admit that. Look, I fell in love with his talent. Like Zach Wilson is incredibly talented. He can make every throw. He's a really good athlete. He reminded Jet fans that I think a couple times this preseason with some of his dynamic runs out of the backfield, including that great one against Tampa that obviously went viral. I think, look, having Rodgers here is going to help him. I don't subscribe to the theory, though, that, Rodgers plays 2 years and he hands it over to Zach and then 15 years of Jet quarterback greatness. I don't buy that. Do I think Zach Wilson will be in the league for a while as a backup at the minimum? Sure. But I question if he's ever going to be, a great starting quarterback. I think the chances of that seem slim, but hey, I mean, he's in a really good spot to at least soak up everything he possibly can get from Rodgers. And then if he is given another opportunity somewhere, even if it's not with the Jets, he's going to get probably one more chance to prove himself. I mean, Geno Smith waited, 8 years to get his chance in Seattle, and he took advantage of it last year. So it could happen. I don't want to completely dismiss it. I just find it hard to believe it will, but I'd love to be wrong. Like, I'd love for Zach Wilson to be the Jets quarterback for years after Rodgers. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I feel like there's got to be a better way that NFL teams can scout and assess talent when it comes to quarterbacks, because I swear, like Trey Lance just got traded to Dallas, and you're just like, dude. Yeah. It's just like I feel like there's been more misses than hits, and then all of a sudden you have Purdy, who's 265. Like, really, where was he drafted?
He was Mr. Irrelevant. He was very last.
Yeah.
Dude, it's just like, what? Yeah. There's got to be a better way.
So Tyson, do you think that there's a lot of Jets fans here in Utah because of that?
As I watched Jake's show, I think there was last year a lot of Jets fans.
Because that's what happens in Utah a lot.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of Jet fans this year. I think they fell off the bandwagon because there's, he's no longer relevant with the team.
Yeah, I think you're right, Tyson. I remember last year we had so many people from Utah that were watching the show. You could tell because their icons were BYU or something related to Zach Wilson, and like you could tell based on the comments. Like, and it's so funny because like the BYU fan is very different than the Jet fan. The Jet fan is just used to losing and pain and suffering and everything's gonna go wrong. The BYU fan is like, he's only played a couple games, like relax. And it's like, I get that, and I tried to be patient, but it just got so bad last year that obviously they had to make a change. And honestly, Zach being as bad as he was is the reason why Aaron Rodgers is on this team right now. Like, if Zach Wilson played like Justin Fields last year, who was not great, but he showed you a little more than Zach, the Jets probably roll with Zach Wilson for a third year and say, hey, he's the guy we took second overall. We got to roll with it. But he was so bad, it just made too much sense with the team being as loaded as they are outside of the quarterback spot to go out there and bring in Rodgers. So it all worked out, I suppose, in the end. But it does worry me a little bit that, if Aaron Rodgers rolls his ankle and has to miss a game or two, here comes Zach Wilson. And that game or two that he might play, it could be the difference in whether or not you win the division or you're a playoff team, given how competitive the AFC is. So still a little,
that's why I was
nervous.
So nervous about the offensive line, but I'm not anymore with Beckham playing and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, okay, we're going to be okay.
We need to be,
don't get hurt.
I think we need to be more worried about Aaron Rodgers breaking a hip. I mean,
I hope not. He's a good this summer.
Do they have his walker on the sideline?
Have you not watched Hard Knocks at all?
He's rejuvenated, Logan. He looks great. He looks great.
Go watch Hard Knocks.
He looks great.
Well, there was a chance though that he was going to come to the Niners there for a minute. There were I don't know if you remember that, right?
Like
there was talks.
I mean, they made sense because of the uncertainty with Purdy, and it's like they were just a quarterback away. But I don't think Green Bay ever wanted to trade them to a team in the conference.
Yeah,
wasn't Vegas one of them too?
Yeah, remember they were the Vegas favorites for a little bit. I never bought that. There's no way Aaron Rodgers ever wanted to play for Josh McDaniels. Let's be real. Rodgers is a Jet for two reasons. One, it was the team that wanted him that gave him the best chance to win from a roster standpoint. And two, he didn't want to learn a new offense at age 40. He wanted to go somewhere where Nathaniel Hackett was in place and they could run the same offense he won 2 MVPs with 2 of the last 3 years.
Sure.
Dude, I got made fun of on my fantasy football draft when I took Garrett Wilson number 2. And they're like,
second overall?
Yeah. And they're like, why? And I'm like, did you see him last year? And he had no one. And like this year he has Aaron Rodgers and he's going to light it up.
I love that. So who went 1 then? Justin Jefferson?
I don't know who took the first one. I think so. And I also took Breece Hall, and everyone's like, why are you taking Breece Hall? And I'm like, first, I understand him. But second of all, he got hurt last year, and he was going to be offensive player rookie of the year. And now he's back. He's healthy. I'm like, dude, it's going to be legit.
I love it.
Yeah. I got to have to go through. I'm in one of the same leagues as him. I'm going to have to go through and look at my roster because I was stuck at work, and so I had to let it auto draft. And so
that's the worst.
But my score was an A+. So I was like, it seems like it's okay. So we'll see. Thankfully, there's no money on this one.
But you remember Tyler Algier, Logan?
Yeah.
So I got him as my backup running back. And like,
oh, there you
he
go.
played. He played rugby at BYU. Yeah. And then they saw him. Kalani Sataki is the head coach of BYU, and saw him playing. And dude, the guy just hit so hard, and he was freaking phenomenal.
I'm a weird anomaly guy that lives in Utah. I don't care for Utah or BYU.
Really?
Because you're from Northern California.
Yeah, but still, I'm not really an NCAA guy, period. Like, but at the same time, like, when Tyson and I first met, one of the first questions literally was like, so BYU or Utah? And I'm like, I don't know, dude. Maybe Utah. I was trying to like cater to you because I'm like, oh wait, he's up north. Maybe he's a Utes fan. And I'm like, Utah. You're like, oh. I'm like, okay. He's a BYU.
Which school has the bigger following there? I'm not familiar with like how.
So Utah is going to be local. BYU is national. And so, I'd
say it's 50-50.
Really?
Yeah. Depends on where you are. Literally, the state split. Northern Utah, where I am, is all Utah, and where Logan is all BYU.
Yeah. So and then there's the Holy Bowl every year or whatever when they play each other.
I can't remember. They haven't done it for a couple of years, but now they're going to Big 10 or Big 12.
Well, when they did it a couple of years ago, like there was this, like somebody paid a crane company to hoist this. I'm not kidding. Like it was like an 80-foot BYU flag next to the freeway down here.
Oh wow!
But then the wind picked up and it all just started tearing and falling apart. And so all the Utah fans that lived in Utah County were like taking pictures of it and being like, "Oh, it's reminiscent. You know, it's a precursor to what's going to happen."
So, do you have a college team, Jake?
Not really. I went to a Division III school, so I guess I'm an Ithaca College Bombers fan.
Oh, okay.
You know, I do keep up with their football team every year because Ithaca is actually like one of the best Division III football schools in the country. So I'll follow that, but I'm not really living and dying with any college team. Like that's the one thing I wish I had. Like I wish I went to like a BYU or a Utah, so I had my team. But
yeah,
you know, I'm so into professional sports that I don't know if I have the bandwidth to be a diehard like college football fan. I guess I'd figure it out if I went to like a Michigan or Ohio State or something cool like that.
Fact though, right?
But yeah, it's
that's. I think that we and like I told you before, like Broncos was force fed down because I grew up in Idaho, so Broncos was force fed with us, and it's like either you watch Broncos or you don't watch anything.
Right.
And I hated the Broncos because everyone loved them, and I was so tired of it. And plus, the kid I really hated was a Broncos fan and wore the coat all the time, and I just wanted to punch him in the face. But that's why I think with smaller states such as Idaho, like you have to fall in love with college because that's all you really have.
Exactly. And like I being from New York, like, you know, I like there's like 9 New York sports teams, right? Like we have 2 baseball teams, 2 football. If you count the Devils, we're talking about 3 hockey, 2 basketball, and no one's a Net fan in New York, but you have the Nets, everyone's a Knicks fan. Like you just have 2 of everything. So, you know, I just grew up around like, hey, it's like these are the teams you root for, and like, you know, college sports in the New York City area is just not that big of a deal. Now, a lot of my friends end up going to, you know, big rah-rah schools in the Big Ten or the SEC. They get into it, but I never had that experience. So I've always kind of just watched from afar. Now, living down here in Houston for 5 years, you know, I've kind of followed college football a lot more because it's huge. But I can't say I really have a team I live and die with.
Yeah, Houston is going to the Big 12 as well this year.
No doubt. And you get so many Texas fans here, LSU fans, like Houston, like the city itself is a hotbed of like alumni from all these schools. A&M has a huge following here. You know, I used to work for ESPN Houston. We carry Texas A&M athletics on our station. So, you know, I got into it just being down here, but I'm not like living and dying with my team like you guys probably are for, you know, a BYU or Utah in that state.
It's true though. What about, are you a Knicks fan? Sorry, Logan.
Oh, go ahead.
Yes.
Are you a Knicks fan?
I am a huge Knicks fan.
See, and I'm all Jazz because that's what we had, but I loved them. Grew up with John Stockton, Jeff Hornacek, Karl Malone.
Yep.
All those guys, dude. So much fun.
Man, just wrong era, man. Like they had to go against Jordan. I mean, I'm a Knicks fan. Like
if he stayed in football, if he stayed in baseball, Jazz would have had a championship.
Yeah,
in 98.
I mean, the one year that the Knicks went to the finals in the 90s when, you know, 94 with Ewing still in his heyday was when Jordan was playing baseball. You know, they lost to the Rockets in 7. They should have won that finals. You know, they were up 3-2 going back to Houston and, you know, couldn't get it done. But I totally relate. Great. Yeah, the dream.
Yeah. I wish I could get into basketball. I mean, the only basketball I used to be, I grew up kind of when like the Sacramento Kings were, because I grew up in Sacramento when the Sacramento Kings, like their little heyday there, where they had like Chris Webber, Mike Bibby, Vlade Divac, all, like Stojakovic, those guys, was like when Sacramento was like a thing. That was the only time we ever like got into basketball. Other than that, I mean, I've got pictures of me and Steve Young jerseys back when I was, in kindergarten and stuff. So that's kind of where the only.
Well, you're not into basketball because you're 4'10", and
4'10".
You could never play. You were Spud Webb.
No, when it was time for PE basketball, I just boxed everybody out because that's what I was. I could just drive everyone out of the key, but that was about it. And then I could throw the ball, maybe hit the backboard. I don't know. It was not good. I was the kid that rolled my ankle in PE every day, every other day in basketball. So
love that.
So now back to the NFL. So we have, let's see, correct me if I'm wrong. We have Mahomes, Rodgers, and Jackson are pretty much the only ones that are remaining who won the MVP, right?
Mahomes, Jackson,
Rodgers, Lamar, and Rodgers. There's no one else in the league.
That sounds right. Obviously, Brady's done, so he's gone.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think
who's winning it this year.
Any active quarterback? I get. Well, Joe Burrow's number one in MVP, so I feel like he's due if he's healthy. Matt Ryan retired, so he's another one. I'm just thinking of guys like who'd be left. Did
Matt Ryan retire?
Yeah, he's doing some work for CBS. I mean, technically, he's not allowed to say he's retired because his contract to get paid $12 million by the Colts, he has to be an active player. Kind of crazy stipulation he got in there when they worked out that trade a year ago. But I think you're right. I think those are the only active quarterback MVPs. I mean, look, you could always bet on Mahomes and feel pretty good. Josh Allen's never won an MVP, so he's going to be a popular pick. But honestly, I was just out in Vegas last weekend. Call me a homer. I put I put plus 1,600 odds on Aaron Rodgers to win a fifth MVP. Why not? He seems like he's rejuvenated. He's locked in. He's got that storyline narrative if it's close. So we'll see. I mean, he's won 2 of the last 3. Why not one more? That would be unbelievable.
He's legit. When that pass last game to Garrett Wilson, I'm like, what the crap was that?
I know. It's
like I haven't seen that forever.
How long have you been a Jets fan, Tyson? Like when do you think it started?
Revis.
Yeah, so you've seen outside of like a handful of good moments here that you've seen nothing but just horrendous quarterback play. So it's just surreal to actually see like one of the all-time greats on your team who wants to be on your team still playing at a high level. I know it's preseason and whatnot, but if you watch Hard Knocks and everything I've heard from people at Jets camp is like this guy still has it and he's all in. He's highly invested. It just feels like if he stays healthy, he's going to put up great numbers and have a great year.
Yeah. It was just when I saw that, I'm like, yep, they're my court. He's like, that's my quarterback. I got it. And I've always loved him. Like, absolutely, just was like Green Bay was always awesome. Speaking of which, I do got to ask you about Jake Love.
Jordan Love.
Jordan Love. I was like, that's wrong. He played for Utah State too. What are your thoughts on Jordan Love?
Well, I really feel like it could go one of 2 ways. He's either going to be awful, and Packer fans will finally experience what quarterback hell is like, because for 33 straight years, they've had Brett Favre, Hall of Famer, one of the best ever, to Aaron Rodgers, Hall of Famer, one of the best ever. So they really haven't suffered at all like, most NFL fan bases have suffered, especially Jet fans, of course. Or Jordan Love will be great because that's the Packers' history, and he'll probably be our team's quarterback, Tyson. He'll be the Jets' quarterback in 2038, 15 years from now. So, to me, it's one of those 2 scenarios. Like, I don't see the scenario where he's just, he's fine, he's okay. He'll be a starter for, 5 or 8 years. I think he's either going to be awful or he's going to be amazing, and I guess we'll find out this year how that's going to play itself out.
Yeah, I'm interested. I think what do you think, Logan? Have you watched enough about him to know anything about him?
No, I haven't. Like I said, I'm also like sitting here getting educated on like the Jets and everybody else. Like this is fun. This is kind of fun for me because normally I do a lot of the talking, right? So I'm kind of like, oh, this is interesting.
He does 90% of the talking. Ask questions, he answers. He's very well spoken. I'm still learning English.
I think it's okay, Tyson. It happens to the best of us.
Hey, I can make stuff. That's about it. But what is it about Joe Burrow that is so good? Like everywhere he goes, they win.
guy's a winner, right? I mean, some guys just have that. He's tough, man. He's clutch in big spot. Like you watch in the moment, never feels like it's too big for him. Like some guys just project confidence. You watch him, and you're like, you just feel like this guy's gonna get the job done every time. Because some guys just have that winner mentality, and like Joe Burrow reminds me a lot of Derek Jeter. Just like the physical traits aren't what made the guy great, but you combine everything they do with the intangibles, and you have a Hall of Famer. And I think that's kind of how I feel when I watch, Joe Burrow, just the consistency, the clutch ability, the leadership. You combine all that, you got one of probably the 3 or 4 best quarterbacks in the league.
I think that's it. I think you just nailed it, because you look at him and how he handles the moment, and it's like it's slow for him. Like he's not, the stress isn't getting to him. Then you look at someone like Wilson or Trey Lance or and they're just like, it's just like it's too big for him, and they're like their brain shuts off or something. I don't know.
It's cool to watch him because, like you said, he's kind of cool and calm under pressure. Like he's playing the game. It's not just like he has the skill, but it's like he's enjoying it, and it's not stressing him out.
Right.
And I like to see a team like the Bengals get someone that is, because it's nice to see another team come up that's not always like the big ones.
But not Cincinnati.
I don't know. I don't hate them. Like they're not on my list of like hates. You know what I mean? Like there's a few teams that I used to like. I mean, every fan has their team and the team that they just like, team or teams that they can't stand. Like Seahawks, get out of here. Like, don't talk to me. Like, now Kansas City, like I don't want to talk to you. Like, and everybody hates Dallas. Let's be honest.
Yeah, it's funny as a Jet fan, I don't hate the Cowboys as much as seemingly everyone else, because I don't like the Giants, and the Cowboys have owned the Giants, so I've enjoyed rooting for the Cowboys against the Giants. So it's all about like how the teams you hate, well, it's probably because they hurt your team directly. But
exactly.
Like a team like Dallas that everyone hates, well, they've actually helped my team over the years, so I don't look at them the same way. It's that interesting relationship you get when you're a fan of one team.
Versus like we used to like. I mean, I used to like hate Raiders fans. Now that they're not there, it's not Oakland, San Francisco Battle of the Bay anymore. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, they're the Raiders. I mean, you got a pretty cool stadium now. Like, I guess you're okay,
right?
That stadium though, have you seen it? We drove by it a few times in Vegas. It is insane.
Oh yeah,
it looks like one of those little Hoover vacuums to me.
The Roomba.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. It really is. I was there for a game last year when the Texans played the Raiders, and I got to go and experience that game day vibe, and it's unreal. I'll be there. Tyson knows this. I'll be there for Jets Raiders in November, and I can't wait to be there with all.
We got to go there, Logan, to the circuit too, to all the events.
So all I'm gonna say is that if you're really my friend, you really love me. If the Niners end up in the Super Bowl, you better get me a ticket. Hey. I don't care if you got to sell Copper Johns. I don't care what you got. So if you had to, I do have a question though. If you, I know this is stereotypical and stupid or whatever. Like, if you had to pick, Jake, who would you say, like, you would see in the Super Bowl? Like, who are the 2 top teams that you think would hit?
Ooh, the last couple of years, I've been going with the rematch. Like last year, I was like, oh, I'm gonna do Rams Bengals. We're gonna do a Super Bowl rematch, and it hasn't happened. Cool. I'm gonna keep rolling with it though until maybe one day it does. I'll go Chiefs Eagles again. We'll run it back, and we'll see if the field turf is a little better this time for the Eagles to get it done. But I don't know. I'm so bad at predictions, so I'm just gonna go with what I've been saying because I've been asked this a couple times. I'm gonna go Chiefs Eagles, and I'm gonna say the Eagles win it this time.
How can you go against the Chiefs?
But I wanted the Eagles to win so bad. Obviously, even though like they are who they are to me, I just that much more did not want the Chiefs to win.
I get it, man. People are sick. It was funny because everyone loved the Kansas City storyline at first because it came out of nowhere,
and now it's like, hey, you're the new Patriots. Get out of here.
We get it. Like Mahomes is awesome, Andy Reid is awesome, Kelsey is awesome, but like, all right, someone else now needs to win. Like, you guys have won enough. Like, how about some of the long suffering other fan bases get a chance to win? That'd be nice.
Yeah, it is usually nice though, because in the NBA and stuff, it seems like there's always the same people, and usually in the NFL, it usually like, if the Rams win, the next year they don't even make the playoffs, and so it's kind of nice that way. That usually you have the Chiefs and other players or teams like that, but usually it does change every year.
Yeah.
But what? Okay, so I kind of know your answer, but what teams are on their turnaround? Like you think they were sucking last year? They were no good. They were like, oh man, they're not even fun to watch. So what teams do you think will make a major turnaround and could actually surprise everyone?
Well, I guess we can't say the Jets because it wouldn't be a surprise, right?
Yeah.
Because we know what their issue was, and they added Aaron Rodgers to fix that issue. So it's tough to
And
say them.
awesome.
I know, man. Saying that out loud is like, holy crap! Like
I know.
it's pretty
like,
surreal.
Another one is like the Jets. I don't hate the Jets. Like, it would be cool to see the Jets come up. You know what I mean? It would be cool
There's
to
so
see
much
Aaron,
history with the Jets. It's just cool.
Well, then you have like you and I. We both listen to Gary Vee a lot, and Gary Vee is like, "I'm going to buy the Jets one day. I'm going to buy the Jets." Like he's such a huge. He's like, I know they suck sometimes, but I love them. Like, so that's cool too. Like it would be super cool to see the content come out of Gary Vee if the Jets are just plugged in this year.
There's a lot of Jet celebrity fans. Him being one of them for sure. So
yeah,
that would be cool. I look at a team like the Rams, right? Like, if they're healthy in a wide open NFC, could the Rams not be a wild card team? Like, can they not bounce back? Like, I don't know. I don't think it's crazy. So that's a team I look at. And also, I don't know. The Falcons roster is actually a lot better than a lot of people realize. If Desmond Ridder is not awful, if he's just mediocre, which he was okay last year as a rookie, got some time at the end of the year, between some of their skill players, right? The receivers they've added. Obviously, they draft Bijan. He's going to be a really good player. Their defense has some talent on it. It's a terrible division they're in the NFC South. Like, could they maybe push for first place? I don't know. No one's talking about them. They're kind of flying under the radar. I'm trying to look at it through the lens of who's this year's Seahawks, who's this year's Giants. Because remember, no one had the Giants going to the playoffs last year, and Brian Dable won Coach of the Year and got that team to the playoffs, and they actually won a playoff game against Minnesota. So those are a couple of teams that I thought of here. And then the AFC, I'm not counting out Pittsburgh, man. How could you? If Kenny Pickett takes a step in year 2, that defense is unreal. They got a running game, and Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season. So, they're going to be in the mix. So that could be another team that maybe is kind of flying under the radar.
So some of the questions that you were some of the teams, I'm like, but they're so boring to watch. Are there any teams, like for me, like back in the day with Tim Duncan and all those guys, San Antonio was the most boring teams ever to watch. Who is that for you in NFL?
Oh, who's boring? I mean, any team that has a crap quarterback, that's boring to watch.
This is true.
Like, the Jets have been boring to watch. They've been painful to watch. If you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a chance. I mean, the Cardinals are going to be a horrendous watch this year. Who's starting for them week 1? Like, Jonathan Gannon hasn't even announced who the starter is going to be there. So, I mean, if you're a team that doesn't have a quarterback, you're my pick. So I'll start with Arizona. Tampa's going to be brutal. Because I think Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask, they're not any good. I mean, the NFL is so quarterback driven that if you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a chance, which is why what your team has done, Logan, the Niners, with all these different quarterbacks and Brock Purdy coming out of nowhere. Like, it's amazing what they've done because it's not like they've had, a Mahomes or a Rodgers or a Brady lead.
Yeah.
They've been able to figure it out with, Jimmy was solid when he played. We don't know what Purdy is, but like they just kind of been able to piece it together, and it's been pretty wild to see.
Yeah, there was a while there we thought Jimmy G was the answer and he was going to be around forever. And I have no, like, I loved Jimmy, but I agree with you. Like, there's a few teams there where I just like, if my local broadcast isn't playing my game or whatever, I'm watching someone else just to kind of see what they're doing. Like, I have a hard time watching just boring games. Like, and then when it's like you got teams that they just have back-to-back boring games or they just get the crap kicked out of them. Like, any one of those guys on the team could run circles around me and just clean my clock. But at the same time, I'm like, man, this is your job. Like, this is what you do. Like, you are paid millions. Like, do something.
Yeah, it's tough. That's where gambling and fantasy football comes into play, where people could watch any random game because they got money on it, fantasy implications. So I mean, that's what makes the NFL the NFL. Like, take the worst NFL game ever, right? I'll give you an example. If I tell you the Milwaukee Brewers are playing the Pittsburgh Pirates on a Monday night in baseball, would you care? Probably not, unless you're a Brewers fan or a Pirates fan. Would you care about watching that random game? Now, if I tell you the same teams in that market for football, it's the Packers versus the Steelers on a Monday night, would you care? I don't care what the record is for those teams. It's two marquee brands you're going to watch. It's football. It's Monday night. Like, that's where the NFL has the biggest advantage over all these other sports. Like, the two worst teams, you might not really care, but people are going to be into it because it's football. There's gambling, fantasy. There's a lot going on with it.
Yeah, they're the Monday night game. It's what you do. It's that game.
Yep.
It's the only one to watch, so you're
Always.
gonna watch it.
It's true. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I just found out today that Taylor Swift said no to the Super Bowl. That's
Really?
all. Yeah.
Really?
Uh-huh.
I mean, she makes more money than literally everybody, so she probably doesn't care.
But what quarterback? So, mind you, I know one that's on the Jets. Which quarterback do you think is going to have the biggest turnaround this season?
What quarterbacks have the biggest turnaround this season?
Yeah, like a breakout season from previous years. Like what? Like maybe Trevor Lawrence. I don't know. Not Trevor Lawrence. Yeah.
Well, he could take another big step though. That's not a bad answer by you, Tyson. Because think about it, like he was pretty good in year 2, got that team to the playoffs, but he really didn't take on that big leap towards the end of the year. Now maybe if he plays like that from the start, they could be pretty good. I'm trying to think who could maybe be that guy.
Dak Prescott.
I mean, staying in that division, Daniel Jones is now paid like a guy who's supposed to be that guy. I don't know if he is. I mean, he was good last year. He was, game managed. They won games. He didn't lose games. So maybe you look at him. I'm trying to think. I'm going through all the divisions here. I'll give you a name. I think this guy, we know he's a good quarterback, but maybe he hasn't gotten the respect because the players around him haven't been good enough, defense especially. That's Derek Carr, who's now with the New Orleans Saints.
I was going to say Carr.
He's a good quarterback, and they've always had terrible defenses around him when he was with the Raiders. Now he's in a very mediocre division. He's clearly the best quarterback between him, Bryce Young, who's a rookie, Baker Mayfield, and Desmond Ridder. Like, Derek Carr's clearly the best quarterback there. He's probably one of the better quarterbacks in that conference, given how loaded the AFC is compared to the NFC. Maybe Derek Carr breaks out, and he goes out there, and he has a great season.
He took a lot of heat, but I feel like he literally is one of those stories of kind of like he didn't have the team to back his skill.
He reminds me of Matt Stafford, right? Matt Stafford with the Lions.
Yeah.
Oh, can't win. He's a loser, this and that. And it's like, okay, well, maybe the Lions set him up to fail, and it turns out they did because he goes to L.A. in first year with McVay, and they win a championship. So Derek Carr kind of reminds me a little bit of Matt Stafford. I was prepared to have to make that argument to convince myself somehow this would work for the Jets if they ended up with Carr, not Rodgers. So I'm glad I don't have to do that, but I do think Carr is a solid quarterback. Like, it's not like the Jets would have been awful if Derek Carr was their QB this year.
He went to the Saints, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So do you think the Saints are going to have a little bit of a better year, like with Carr back there, if he's got the right guys in his quiver?
Well, Thomas is in my fantasy team. He has to do well.
You're like, there's not an option. He has to.
He just can't stay healthy, man. That's that guy.
I know.
He hasn't been healthy in a couple of years. I mean, the last time he played, he was like the best receiver in the league, but it's been a while.
Seriously, though. That was when Breeze was playing.
Yep.
So there's Logan and I always it's always transitions to some deep questions and thoughts and like that. And so I hope you're okay with this question, but there's a lot of stigma when it comes to NFL players, whether it be mental illness, them hurting their spouses, doing something wrong, something like that. And you see how Aaron Rodgers was treated in Green Bay at the very end. His fans were and even the ownership was very mean to him and aggressive with him. And you could just physically see him down, like to the point where he was going to retire. So we see this, and we also see how other players struggle with mental health. So how do you think the high pressure nature of professional football impacts these guys? Because in reality, right when they get drafted, they're still kids,
right? Yeah.
So how do you think it affects them?
It's not easy. Like, obviously, we look at these guys, and sometimes as fans we forget these guys are human beings too. Like, they screw up, make a bad play. Like, they're the ones who got to deal with that when they check their phone and go on Twitter and they're getting destroyed by everyone, or their worst moments being broadcasted to everyone. Like, think about it. If you're a wide receiver, Braxton Berrios last year, you dropped that pass that cost the Jets a game. Like, your worst moment at your job is broadcasted to millions of people around the world. Like, if I have a bad radio show, maybe people hear it, but it's not the same thing as like being a football player making a big mistake. So you look at it from that perspective, and it's tough. And these guys can be traded. Like, I can't be traded at my job. Like, Copper Johns can't just ship you off to another men's grooming company if they feel like it. I mean, you also are the Copper John's, the founder, so maybe that wouldn't happen anyway. But you get my point. Like, it's just a different world that these guys kind of live in. So there's a lot of pressure on them, a lot of scrutiny, and yeah, they get paid really well, and that's part of it. But yeah, I mean, mental health is definitely a real thing, and that's why so many of these sports teams they do employ sports psychiatrists to help these guys. They offer resources on site, performance coaches, so to speak, mental health coaches. All these teams employ these coaches now, these people, because they recognize that it's not easy being a high profile athlete in any sport you're in.
Yeah, I think personally, like, take money aside, money is just being part of a professional athlete. But NFL fans are more passionate than pretty much anyone I can think of. And then you look at the Jets and how vocal they are with it. Even you think of, have you guys seen Invincible with Mark Wahlberg?
Oh yeah,
Vince Papale. It's like the best. It's one of the best shows ever. Just how they're booing and it's their own team and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, just do that. Every team does that. And so in my mind, I'm like, hey, so that's got to affect. And then you see Wilson, he gets the yips and all that kind of stuff. You've seen who was the second baseman from New York that they had to let go because he got the yips. It was
Chuck Knobloch.
Yeah, dude. It's like they get this. So how do they get out of that? And so I didn't know that they had psychologists and therapists and stuff like that. So what do they do with Wilson, because he doesn't seem like he has it anymore? I still think he overthinks, but it doesn't seem like he has it as much.
I think they kind of slowly just rebuilt his confidence up by one. I mean, Zach Wilson was under enormous pressure being the second pick in the draft, playing for the Jets, who have not had a franchise quarterback since Chad Pennington in the early 2000s. Really, like, and even that, like, everyone is always being called, is this the guy that could lead the Jets to a Super Bowl, the first since Joe Namath? Like, that's always the storyline with the Jets. It's always they have never had a quarterback. That's the history of the franchise. That storyline. So Zach came in as a kid from Utah at BYU, which is a totally different world than playing for the Jets, the biggest media market. Like, there's probably 4 or 5 beat reporters that cover BYU football. There's 20 every day that are around the Jets. Like, it's a different world. It's a different animal. So I think he started off as a rookie. He's thrown into it, and he had some success, but it's not easy. They only win 4 games year one, and then year 2, he gets hurt in the preseason. He comes back, and things kind of got away from him as the year went on. They had some injuries, so the talent around him wasn't as good. He couldn't just hand the ball off to Breece Hall and have Breece Hall make a huge play that could help him win a game. So I think you combine all that with the pressure of, hey, you're supposed to be the great player, you're the second pick, and they start losing. That's hard in New York, and I think it mentally got to him. And now that he's no longer the starter and he knows he could kind of take a breath, sit back, learn from one of the best ever, someone he has talked about he grew up admiring, and Aaron Rodgers, I think he could relax a little bit, get his confidence back. There's better coaching around him. They worked on him with his footwork, his mechanics, which were all out of whack because that was all part of the yips mentally. And I just think he looks more comfortable, more confident because he's in just a much better environment than where he was a year ago at this time.
What do you think, Logan?
Well, I mean, it's also like kind of like the celebrity status that some of these guys get. Like, I mean, they get all of their personal lives, their personal laundry aired out. I mean, you look at Brady and his whole divorce, and then you look at, I mean, Wilson and everything, all the media attention that he got for his for the stuff that he did, being into his friends' moms and stuff like that, right? But
oh yeah, I forgot about that.
But that's what I'm saying is, like, you get all these guys that, like, their personal, not everybody gets this, like, like, I feel like the media was so nice to Brock Purdy. It was like this golden child that, like, and his dad this and his mom this and he did it. But then you get some of these guys that just get torn apart, like all the the crap that Aaron Rodgers went through, and then like Tom Brady, all of his freaking laundry getting aired with his, like I said, with his divorce, and then you get all these other guys that end up getting in some legal trouble, and it's like, people make mistakes. Some guys made some really bad mistakes, but then when you get all of that aired and you get millions of people who see it, and then they all get their own opinions about it, and then people are posting about it, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, it's just like, it's got to be so mentally draining to just hear strangers tear you apart on something that you're trying to deal with as just like a natural human being. But then you get millions of people that also know what's going on, like intimate details that normally you wouldn't share with a bunch of people. So I can sympathize, but I obviously don't know what it's like. But I feel bad for the guys sometimes. But then they have.
Dude, I wonder if that's why you have like some of the smaller guys like Wilson. where they come out with lots of expectation, but they have never been in that type of environment from BYU.
Sure.
Then you have like, why can't I have Joe Burrows in LSU who wins the champion? He gets all that media attention. He feels it, the pressure before he knows how to handle it. He goes and succeeds in the NFL. Same with Lawrence and same with, but then you have Purdy who's never really dealt with it, but he has no expectations. He does really well. So I really wonder if Jake has something there. Like just, he had all the pressure in the world on him and it got to him. Oh, it's just interesting. But are there any like matchups that we're going to be winding down here in just a sec, but are there any like specific matchups that you're excited to see?
Ooh, I mean, Jets Bills is where I'm at, Tyson. I'll be in the building September 11th. It's always an emotional time in New York City for obvious reasons. And I mean, the fact that the Jets are opening up in primetime against a division rival, a huge game, Monday Night Football, the whole country's going to be watching. I can't wait, man. That'll be one of the more iconic recent moments in New York sports history. So that's all I'm focused on right now, man. I'll be in the building, and I can't wait. It's gonna be insane.
Dude, that's gonna be fun. I'm jealous that you got to do that.
Yeah,
it's like a bucket list to go to a Monday Night Football game.
Yeah.
What about you, Logan? Any what are you excited for?
I just would like to see it. I would like to see it kind of a comeback for us. But at the same time, I like to see, like I was saying, I like to see the teams that don't normally get a lot of limelight kind of, end up with like a better record. I would love to go to an NFL game, period. Like I've been to plenty of college games, stuff like that. So like, I think if I ever had the opportunity to go to like any game, I think I would definitely take up on it.
Dude, let's go to Vegas.
I would totally do that.
Jets Raiders. Promo code Jake15. Stay at Circo. Tyson, we'll give you the full hookup, man. You can bring all the Copper John's products. We'll do a full demo where all my Jet fan beard friends that are making the trip. It'll be awesome.
Let's do it.
We really should. That'd be cool.
So I do want to ask one question though, because I love a good freaking conspiracy theory. What are your thoughts on everyone who says the NFL is totally rigged?
I mean, look, I think it's silly. I laugh at it. I did enjoy the script bit from last year that Arian Foster jokingly said on his podcast that people ran with. I thought that was hilarious. I don't buy it though. I mean, are there people that actually think it's rigged? I'm sure, but I don't know. There's just no way it's actually rigged given like what happens on a game in game out basis.
Yeah. Because there's this thing floating around TikTok right now that if you look at the last 5 years, I guess, or whatever of the Super Bowl logo, it's got like this 2 main colors and they matched it up to like every 2. And this year it's like red and purple. So everyone's like, oh, Niners, Ravens, oh, Chiefs, Vikings, whatever, yada, yada, yada. So that's the kind of stuff that when it's 2:00 in the morning and you haven't slept a lot and you drink too many Red Bulls, that you're kind of like, that makes total sense. But at the same time, you don't ever want to believe it because it's like, I have a love for the games, but I played football. You can't. It'd be hard to script something that big.
Yeah, I mean, look, if it's rigged, why would they want to like screw the Jets over since 1969? You're talking about one of the biggest media markets in the world. You know how much attention the NFL would get if like the Jets? It'd be like the Cubs winning the World Series if the Jets won a championship. Yeah. So like that, like there's just no way they would. They would want to have the Jets be as bad as they've been for this long if they could rig it.
Well, I'd like to see the Jets win. I think that would be you kind of got a little pseudo Jets fan now. I'll put on
the game that I really want to happen is us destroy the Patriots and just see the smug face of Bill Belichick just like be humbled a little. That's all.
Inject that into my veins. I'm in.
Yeah, that's another one of the top hate teams is just Patriots. I'm tired of seeing the Patriots.
I mean, they went to 9 Super Bowls and won 6 of them. Enough. It's time.
So I have one question that came from someone. He is an aspiring journalist, sports media, all that kind of stuff. So I'm reading his question. What are some recommendations or advice you would give someone who is pursuing a career in sports media?
Excellent question. I get asked this a lot, and I always try and come up with like a similar theme for the answer. And like it's changed over the years just because technology has changed. But I would say the biggest thing is do something that gets you on the air, whether it's a YouTube channel like this, go live on StreamYard, or do your own podcast and just post the audio somewhere. Or, hey, maybe you want to be a play-by-play person, watch a random baseball game and take out your phone and talk into it and record yourself doing play-by-play. Put yourself in a position where you're on the air in whatever capacity that is, and just find out if you truly love it. Because if you love it, like, you're going to want to keep doing it. Like, you're not going to be good right away. Nobody is good on air when they first start talking into a microphone. So find out if you truly are passionate about it. And then from there, kind of figure out, well, okay, I like doing this, but I don't like doing that. Like, I thought I was going to be a play-by-play person. I realized I was not any good at that. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do sports talk radio, which is now kind of evolved into, sports media, digital stuff on YouTube that I do in addition to radio. So the business is constantly changing, but the first thing I always tell people is give yourself an opportunity to find out if you truly want to do it. Because if you do want to do it, the only way you get better, like riding a bike or being an athlete that practices their sport, you got to keep doing it and doing it. And with technology nowadays, it's very easy to go on Amazon, buy a cheap podcast mic, open up StreamYard like what we're doing right now, and record yourself giving a take on whatever your favorite team is or whatever you want to talk about. So find out if you truly want to do it by getting reps doing it first and then kind of go from there.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, that's essentially kind of like what we did, Tyson. Like we did a couple of lives and someone's like, hey, you guys should start a podcast. And I think we talked about it for like, 9 months?
Uh-huh.
And then we tried it out. And so, yeah, I think that's some great advice. I mean, I can see how you're easy to listen to. There's a lot of people that could do good in that field as well.
This is the most unique podcast episode we've ever done, because all of ours is just me, him, and I just talking, and we're just kind of evolving. And these were very specific niche towards what you do well. And so I hope you enjoy this. It was a lot. I appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, this was great.
This was awesome. I appreciate you having me. I mean, Tyson, I can't thank you enough, though, man. Like I'm using my products from Copper John's every day. I haven't even used the soap yet until the other day. The soap is incredible too. I've used the beard balm. I've used like the beard wax. I've used the cologne, which by the way smells tremendous, but I hadn't used the soap yet. I'm using the soap. I'm like, this is pretty good too. So you guys have great products over there, man. I'm so excited that my audience is gravitating to it because it's really cool.
Dude, you gotta try the deodorant now. The new deodorant.
Did I send you deodorant?
Oh yeah, I just got some.
No,
that's
Jake.
I don't know if I got deodorant. Honestly, you might have. I got the box in my closet. I just tried to take out like one of each thing to kind of like try it out.
The deodorant's legit. Like, it's awesome. Really, really good. But no, do you have Sundance cologne? Is that the spray cologne that you have?
I think that's the one you gave me, right?
Oh. So fun fact is Logan wears it, and one of our friends' wives was extremely drunk in Vegas.
Hold on, you're not setting the stage there. Like,
okay, you can say
they got married in Vegas the day before.
Oh, no, it was that day, wasn't it?
Yeah, or maybe that day or whatever. Yeah, and we all met down in the lobby. We were all going to go do some stuff, and they had obviously had a really good, really happy day. And I think she threw back a couple sitting at the bar, and I come up. I think I showered, got changed or whatever, and I had all my good stuff from Copper John's on, and she comes up and sticks her nose like right in my armpit. She's like, "You smell amazing," and she is such a sweetheart. I love her. Her husband Matt is one of our really good buddies. And I was like, I don't know what to do in this situation. I was like, I know it smells good. That's why I'm wearing it. My wife likes it. And I was like, but I just met you 2 days ago. Like, we need to bring it back up here a little bit.
Deep in his armpit.
And then she was like, everybody smell him. And I'm like, next thing I know, it's like, hey, everybody.
Wow. That's not as bad as where I thought that story might have been headed.
Oh, yeah, no.
I was like, she just got married, and now she comes down to the bar. She's had a couple, and she sticks her head in my armpit. I'm like, oh, God, where's this going now? So that's not terrible.
That's a whole nother type of podcast.
No, but is there anything, Logan, that you want to bring up before we end it?
No, I think this has been great. Like I said, it's been super educational. Like, I've never really known anything about the Jets other than they just kind of like existed, right? Like, they've just always been one of those teams. Like, no offense, right? We've definitely had our existing years where it was like embarrassing to be a Niners fan. But like, I feel like I'm going to follow him a little bit this year. Now, with Rodgers, it'll be easier to follow him, right? Admittedly so. But I think it'll be fun to like, now you piqued my interest to be like, hey, I should be more involved. I should know more about the whole league. I should know more about everybody. So now you've just piqued my ADHD, and
it becomes addictive. And then you pretend like me. I pretend like I know what I'm talking about, and then I try to talk about them. I don't know anything.
Yeah, like go.
Jake has a skill set that I don't have, and then all of a sudden you start bringing him on the show, and you start talking about it. Like, oh yeah, I don't know anything.
man, I don't know. I don't know anything either. I just kind of fake it till I make it type of thing, you know.
We just talked about that. So
we did last podcast.
So yeah, man, it's been great. Thanks for coming on, man.
My pleasure, guys. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, have a wonderful night, guys. And if you need anything, Logan and I are always around. And make sure to go check out Jake Asman Show on Jake Asman channel on YouTube, and give him a follow and learn everything about the Jets. So have a great night, guys.